My name is Eileen Wakesho. I am a mother of two, both aged 1, which means I am a mother of twins. And in this economy, when you have twins, it means everything is double, from diapers to clothes to everything. And so when I heard about carbon markets and the fact that everyone is making money, I was like, for me to survive with these two incredible human beings, I've got to understand how the market operates and then figure out if I can equally make money, because who doesn't want to make money? Who doesn't want to make money? No one, eh? So everyone wants to make money. And so just a few disclaimers. So if I'm not taking care of these two incredible human beings that are 1 year old, I spend time largely among indigenous and local communities, supporting them to understand what this market is about. That is one. And then the other thing that I do is supporting them figure out how to secure their land rights. Okay. So for those that have just basic understanding about the landscape in this country is we have land categorized in 3, right? So we have public land, ni shamba ile iko na mahospitali, barabara, sawa sawa. And then there's private land. Is that land hiyo kila mtu ako na title yake ya binafsi? And then we have land that is communally owned, which is land that is owned by a group of people. So it's equally private land. The only difference is that it is owned by a group of people. Okay. Now, when I walked in here, I had some very nice looking gentlemen. Of course, I said I have 2 babies, but that should not scare you. Unajua pale natoka tunaambiwa ukinunua ng'ombe unapewa na ndama. Ukinunua redio unapewa na kaseti. Unacheza mziki wako, sawa? So don't get scared. Some of these good things come in a package. And so when I was walking in, I had some very nice looking gentlemen saying, squeezy climate imebadilika sana. Yani kuna joto sana. Asubuhi kulikuwa tofauti, saizi kumekuwa tofauti. And even though he was nice looking, just the way he defined what weather is, kidogo was a turn off for me. I was like, no, I ain't doing that guy. And so just by way of basics, because this is going to be like a very basic class for everyone. And so there's a difference between weather and climate, good people. And so that you don't miss a chance to get an incredible, beautiful girl from Taita Hills like myself, by how you define weather and climate, there is a difference. Do you know the difference? Do you? Okay. The weather is what changes over a short period of time. Climate is over a long period of time, at least 30 years. Sawa sawa? Now you know, right? Okay. Some important definitions that we will use across this conversation. Adaptation, mitigation. Nani anajua hiyo? Usisome kwanza, hata kuangalia screen.
Okay. Adapt, isha happen. Climate change isha happen. So una adapt, kusha flood. So you do the right thing, ndio muishi na hiyo effect ya hiyo climate change. Kumitigate, unajua kuna ka risk hapa. So wacha nifanye the right thing, ndio kakikuja kasinichome.
Sibumeelewa. Adaptation is from the word adapt. It's already happening. The mess is already here. So you figure out how to adapt, sindio? And then mitigate, you try and do that before, okay? Well, looks like everybody knows these things. Okay. Now, I think the prompters were the best thing that happened in this conversation because they helped us really understand. And group 9, we didn't understand you, but you guy. Anyway. So, wanatuambia weather inabadilika kila siku, sindio? I spend a lot of time in Samburu and like Kipia and Marsabit. And the elderly women will tell you, kitambo tulikuwa tunajua kutanyesha lini. Okay. Tulikuwa tunajua tutapanda lini. Tulikuwa tunajua mifugo yetu tutapeleka wapi lini. Lakini siku hizi mambo yamebadilika. Hatujui kutanyesha lini. Na hata kukinyesha, kunanyesha zaidi. So we can't plant because there are going to be floods. We don't know when to take our animals right or left. Okay. And many of them are struggling to understand what's happening. Okay. So I know one of the groups told us, man, this thing is just a scam. Maybe it is, but there could be elements of truth, Sindio? Because if for sure people used to know that it's going to rain and it rains, now we don't know. Okay. When I was growing up, and I grew up in the village of Taita, one of the most beautiful places in this country, tulikuwa tunapanda mboga. Okay. Now we don't do those things because we don't know when it's going to rain. And so you can't tell me that this thing is a scam, right? Clearly there are things that are happening that are causing this. It can't all be a scam. It could be a scam, maybe. But the fact that for sure there are changes in the weather patterns and we're experiencing changes in the climate is correct. Okay. Now the scientists have told us part of this is because kitambo, before we had so many industries that are emitting a lot of carbon in the atmosphere, jua ingepiga chini, ikaenda ikaachilika kwa atmosphere, si ndio? Vizuri. Now, what's happening? Inapiga, and because of all these emissions that's happening, there's a layer that's formed. So when it hits Earth, it's not fully released, it's trapped. When it's trapped, what happens? The Earth gets hot, and everything changes over time. Okay. And that's exactly what's happening. So a lot of this is caused by what you and me are doing. Okay. Now, there was a lot of discussions here about whether this is a Mzungu business. Maybe it is. Or whether this is some Mwangi can do this and make money out of this. Surely, I think it is. But I think one thing that is we cannot continue to contest is for sure we're experiencing huge changes to the climate. 2022-23, I think it's IGAD that said the extended drought is the worst witnessed over the last 40 years. So we've never seen this before. Okay. And they're telling us to fold our sleeves, it's going to get worse. Okay. So I have two beautiful Masai ladies who came with me. And both of them wanafuga mbuzi na ng'ombe. Sasa nimewambia waanze kutayarisha watapeleka wapi ng'ombe zao. Because the Met Department is telling us that we are going to have something that looks like what we experienced in 2022-2023. Okay. Now, I'm telling you this thing so that I set grounds, because I know you guys want to tell me, enda mbio utufikishie mahali kwa pesa. Chillax, we're going to get there. We are getting where money is. Because I have had another guy say, eti hata mimi niko na plot nimepanda miti, hiyo miti yako haiwezi uza carbon wewe. Okay. I think there's a group that said ukipanda miti zako mbili, you cannot trade carbon na miti mbili. But we'll get there on the money business, because I know that's why you all came. Because mnasikia kuna pesa. Now we are saying there's a challenge because for sure the climate is changing and we are all experiencing the impacts of it. Sawa. And if there's a problem, there must be a solution. Okay. Whoever thought about drunkard lectures thought that Kenyans enjoy their drink, which is true, who doesn't? And as they sit to enjoy their drink, they don't mind some good conversation that will help them understand one or two things and sound more brilliant than they were before they walked in here. And so they came with a solution that come enjoy your drink, and as you do that, we'll tell you about something useful that you don't know, which is why you came. And so the solution is, can we convert the problem, which is emission, to something that can be traded, okay, and someone can buy, and we'll get into trading shortly. And then, because it's going to be a balance ni hesabu, ukieka plus na minus, you get something, sindio? So someone pollutes, someone doesn't pollute, or does something else, and then we get a negative somehow. And that's really the foundation of the carbon market, okay? Now, let's make it simple and basic so that we understand and we all make this money, okay? Someone told us here that almost all companies almost all carbon developers are foreign companies, and I'll tell you 95% or thereabout are all foreign companies. I think Kenyans are brilliant. They're able to design projects that are going to make money, but we'll get to why that's not happening, okay? And maybe out of this we can form chama ya kutoa milioni mbili mbili, and then we can figure out how to do this, okay? So in basic terms, if you think about carbon markets, ni soko. Sawa sawa. Lakini hii soko, this is how it operates, okay? Iko mtu nachafua hewa, sio hapa, kwingine, okay? Kuna mtu amesema hapa tufunge kampuni. Kampuni ziko wapi za kufunga? Where are they? Unless when we get to Singapore, now we are not there yet, you know that, eh? Once we get to the Singapore dream, na nimesikia iko Kiharu, we will close companies. But for now, guys, hatuna kampuni, and you know that. Iko tu ya toothpick, hiyo ya emit mingi. Okay. And so the companies are not here, they are elsewhere, right? And so there, where they are polluting, they are saying, guys, we cannot close our companies because why should we? Okay. Well, they're not saying where, but of course when they're there, they're saying, why should we close? But because we cannot close and we want to sound like for sure this is, what we are going to do is, for those that are doing something, okay, something that's helping us do a few things. One, remove the carbon that's in the atmosphere. And when we talk about carbon, see your carbon dioxide peke yake, we loosely use carbon to represent all greenhouse gases. Iko methane ile ya mapupu ya ng'ombe, na zingine hata ya binadamu iko. So tukisema carbon, that's not the only greenhouse gas. There are many others, okay? And so, the analogy is biashara. Mimi sichafui, sawa sawa. Lakini si eti sichafui alafu nimechill tu hapa. Hapana, there's something I'm doing. Okay. What am I doing? I'm doing something that allows me, one, to remove the carbon that's already in the atmosphere. That's one. Two, to avoid. Okay. And how do you avoid? The alternatives. Huko kwetu Taita tulikuwa tunatumia kuni, siku hizi tume improve. Wanatuambia kwa sababu tuna ng'ombe 2-3 kama hawa Masai, wanatuambia hiyo kinyesi ya ng'ombe inaweza kuwa biogas. So we are avoiding, tumeacha mambo ya kuni, tunatumia biogas. That's avoidance. Okay. Lakini kuna wengine wanatuambia wachana na hii avoidance reduction. Ikikuwa kwa hewa tunaweza capture. Sawa sawa? Direct air capture. Iko watu, they're able to release machines in the atmosphere that will help capture the carbon and store it elsewhere. Sawa sawa? Now, if I don't pollute, and you're polluting, not you, the other one, that the person that's polluting and that must continue to pollute because they cannot close their companies. I mean, if they close their companies, how will you drive your Ford? How will you drive your Mac? Okay, those are the brands I know. How will you drive your Audi? And so they have to continue to run their companies. But because me, who's a very good Kenyan here, I'm doing something. I'm planting more trees. I am ensuring that I don't use kuni, makaa. So I'm using something else, that's biogas and so on and so forth. This one that's polluting is saying, because you are not polluting you and you're doing something, I'm going to buy your effort, okay? And I'm going to pay you, okay? Because I don't want to continue emitting, but I don't have an alternative. And so allow me to continue to pollute, but because there's something good you're doing, I will pay you, okay? I'll buy your effort, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, good people. Is this making sense or am I confusing you more? Oh, okay. It's the glass you're holding. Okay. Now, this just like any trade, this trade is guided by a number of international frameworks. And there are 2 key frameworks that guide this market. Okay. Now, kitambo tulikuwa na Kyoto Protocol. Sasa, now the interesting about Kyoto Protocol was that it required just the developed countries, call them the emitters, to reduce their emissions. How do they do that? It's hard, right? Hata wewe mtu akikwambia ufunge kampuni yako surely utafunga. Inakuwa ngumu, si ndio? And so it took off, but not so much. There are many projects. Most of the projects were under the CDM, that was Clean Development Mechanism. And so in 2015, they said, let's make it fair. Let's ensure that everyone reduces their emissions. Okay. So countries, including ourselves, made commitments. So we are signatories to the Paris Agreement. If you come from Taita, utasema Paris Agreement, it's all fine. After the French don't pronounce the English the way we do, so it's okay. And so we said, Sisi as Kenyans, we will reduce our emissions. Okay. And because already our emissions are insignificant, what do? We sell our good work to those that are polluting. Okay. And so that's really the framework that is providing guidance around how carbon markets are operating. Sawa. So we've defined a number of terms. So you ask me, how is carbon measured? Okay, how is this carbon measured? So they tell us, for you to be able to be permitted to emit 1 metric ton of carbon or its equivalent, That's one credit. Sawa sawa. Usianze kuniuliza credit nauzwa pesa ngapi, tutafika huko. Sawa sawa. So it's one metric ton of carbon is one credit. So now start asking yourself, kama hiyo miti yako mbili itakuwa na biashara hapa. Okay? Now, there are many standards. So you don't just, have your credits. They've got to be verified. Unfortunately, we don't have any local verifiers here, and we will figure out why. So there are a number of international verifiable organizations or companies. These companies, they don't verify for free, unalipa, okay? You pay for them to be able to verify that indeed, in your land of X hectares, which is equivalent to Y acres, indeed, your soil, your trees absorbed this number of metric tons of carbon. Okay. Awezi sema tu unajua nikiangalia hii miti yangu vile height yake inakaa, hii inaweza kuwa hapana. It's a process, good people. Okay. So there are many of these companies. Kuna wale wanafanya wasema ni voluntary. Okay. So we have VERs, which is verifiable emission reductions. We have the certified emission reductions. And then we have the international ones that are between member states. States to states. Okay. Among the biggest voluntary certifiers are Vera. And then we have Planet Vivo. And then we have the American Carbon Registry. Now, nilianza kwa kueleza ardhi ambazo tuko nazo Kenya. Tuko na ardhi ya umma, public land. Sasa, tuko na ardhi ya binafsi, private land, ile ambayo uko na title yako. Na tuko na ardhi ya jamii, ambayo ni ardhi inamilikiwa na jamii. It's owned by a group of communities. Many times, these are communities that share some common things. It could be common ancestry, common practices. Many of them are largely pastoralist communities, they're indigenous communities, but we also have a number of local communities that own land communally. In 2016, Kenya passed the Community Land Act, and among the many things that it did is it provided a framework for Kenyans who live in these lands, first to have their lands recognized, kama ni ardhi yao, and then two, to provide a framework on how they can register these lands. Now, the community lands is where I will stick a bit because this is where a lot of this business is happening. Now, do you know which country is host to the world's largest soil carbon project? Unajua hiyo? I mean, if you don't know anything, this one shika tu ndio hata mtu akwambia unaambia hata I know the world's largest soil carbon project ile nchi iko. Do you know? You don't know? Guy, aki haujui, and there you're looking nice. Okay. So hold it. So Kenya is home to the world's largest soil carbon project. It covers about 1.9 million hectares. Bring it to acres, that's about 4.5 million acres. Unajua iko kina Mwangi hapa wanaelewa in terms of acres. That's huge. It cuts across 4 counties of this country. It's the world's largest soil carbon project. I said soil because there are other types of carbon. Okay. Now these projects happen on lands that are communally owned because they're important aspects for you to be able to trade your credits. Okay. Now I'm here to burst your balloon. Hiyo 50 by 100 yako haiwezi. Okay, unasema uko na kota hata hiyo haiwezi. Scale is an important aspect for the market to work. Okay. Now, for whatever reasons, a lot of these projects are happening on lands that are owned by communities. Most of you have followed the discussions about, it was this project in Kajiado. This mzee was asking, hii ni upepo ama ni pepo? Okay. And many of these communities are asking the same questions. One elderly woman aliniambia, you know, we are receiving money. Who doesn't want money? Okay. And we are receiving money, but our worry is that this money we are receiving is that our young people, some of whom are in this room, ambao tumewapeleka shule, are selling our air, they're putting it in bags, and then because they've seen a few mzungus in this room, wanawauzia, and before we know it, now we are not even feeling nice, we are not breathing properly. That is how people are interpreting what carbon is. Okay. Now, even though the concept is fair enough, it's a market, and we are trading something, and what we are trading is clean air. But man, it's not like it's being packaged in bags. No, 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 no. It's because at the end of the day, the universe is one. And so whatever is emitted here would have impacts to me, who's not emitting much, and to someone else in Europe who's emitting very, 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 very much. So I've told you that your 50 by 100 will not work because, in fact, already in that 50 by 100, you already have your trees. Indio, zimekuaga. Now, there are a few key elements that govern the market. One is additionality. Additionality means there's something extra you're doing. Si miti yako imekuaga hapa 7, imebaki hivyo 7, ndio hiyo sasa umesikia kuna carbon, unataka kuuza, there's nothing extra you're doing. So you've got to show that this was the baseline before, and now this is what is happening. So there's something about additionality. Sawa? So if you're doing nothing additional, no one is going to verify your credits. Okay. The second thing is a permanency. Okay. You can't say, nimeonyeshwa na that mzungu who came here about this machine that is going to capture carbon in the atmosphere, and then I'll drill it in stones. It can only be there for 3 months, 6 months. No. Permanency, the concept about permanency is at least the carbon should be stored for at least 100 years. And that explains why carbon credits from like agriculture are among the lowest paying, because unajua unapanda leo, umevuna after just X months. But for crops that are able to store longer, then the concept of permanency comes into place. And then, of course, nimekwambia, you can't verify yourself. Someone has to verify. Okay, but you've got to engage a technical partner. Someone said, yeah, oh, they'll create jobs. It's true, they create jobs. There are a lot of companies whose business is to come and help you measure how much your soil, your trees, your project, your biogas is either avoiding or reducing carbon. Mi na wewe hatuwezi kufanya hiyo. There are some technicalities around that measurement before it's verified by, verifying bodies like Vera. Now, in 2023, our incredible president said that tumeona iko pesa hapa, and because Kenya mkiambiwa mnaongezewa sijui housing levy sha mnapiga kelele, let us figure out a way to be able to leta pesa bila maandamano, si ndio? So the president declared that Kenya is going to expand carbon markets and make money, because everybody wants to make money. But to be able to do this, let's have a law that governs how these markets are operating. Now, this happened in 2023, but carbon projects have existed long before Mumias was shut down. Mumias is among the first carbon projects we had in this country. Now, many of you don't know Mumias. You only see it in the shelves, and you don't know that it even died, but we still have sugar in the shelves. But this is one of the companies, among the first and oldest companies, that traded its credits. Mumias was using to power the company, so they were using an alternative source of power to run the company. Now, even though a lot of these projects existed long before, we said now let's put in place a law to be able to govern this. And so we amended our Climate Change Act to provide a framework to be able to regulate the carbon markets. You know, Kenyans, hakuna sheria hatuna. Ukisema ndoa tuko nayo. Ukisema ugavi wa mali katika ndoa tuko nayo. Ukisema kila sheria tuko nayo. So sheria is not a problem. We are not short of laws. In fact, yule mtu alisema hapa wabunge wauzwe, we will legislate on that also. Okay. So we amended our Climate Change Act. But what is hilarious about how we did it, you remember we hosted the first Africa Climate Summit. Who remembers? Who was there? Hi, I see you. So what we did is we ensured just before, because we were inviting a lot of member states from the continent, so just before they come, we have a law. Okay. I think the public consultation was published on 30th of August, and I think on 1st of September we signed it into law, but we are efficient, you know that. And we have a law now that governs how we trade our credits. Now the problem is we've had companies that have been trading long before. Okay. Now, within this market, you can choose to trade your credits on your own, if you're able to. But you see, because how technical this market is, many times you'll have to engage someone to help you trade your credits. So what do? You waive your legal rights. Okay. So if you look at most contracts that communities are signing with developers, is of the first things they do is they waive their legal rights. Wanasema sasa tumekupa wewe haki zetu za kuuza credit yetu. Okay. Whether communities understand what they're doing is one thing, but anyway, a lot of communities are signing away their legal rights to trade because companies are required to have rights to be able to trade those credits. Now, most of these companies also, the only thing they would do is work on how to develop a project. Now, standards like Vera have methodologies. So they will tell you, if you use methodologies CM001, this is what you're supposed to do. Okay. Or if you use methodology X, this is what you are supposed to do. Sasa. And so what they would do is they would develop the project, and then they will go look for market. Now, most of you here, I know the only thing you know how to sell is 50 by 100 plots. But the people that are buying these things are not those ones for 50 by 100. It's big companies that are not here. And that is why among the clusters that are thriving are marketers. Okay. Now let's go back to the law. So what we decided is, we said, I told you we amended our Climate Change Act, right? And we said we are clustering this project into two. It's either a land-based project or a non-land-based project. Okay. Tukasema if it's land-based, at least 40% iende kwa landowners. Sawa sawa? Mostly communities. 40%. Sawa sawa? Ardhi ni yako, lakini at least 40%. Then you know Kenyans are very mischievous people, apart from those that are in this room. They are the only good ones. And then we went to the regulations the following year. And what we did in the regulations, we said, it's 40% less cost of doing business. Unajua how much it is to set up a carbon project? So even though we are saying it's 40%, the regulations comes and says, no, it's not just 40%. It's 40% less cost of doing business. Now, if you know what these people, we are not saying their names, they will tell you the cost of doing business is everything we made. Okay. And if it's everything we made, hakuna pesa. So 40% of what? Of zero. They will give you some interesting figures. And so it will be 40% of that figure because it's less cost of doing business. Now group 9 ni kama walikuwa wamesoma hii PowerPoint. And then they said for non-land based, it's 25. Okay. So let's look at an interesting thing here. And I don't know how well I'm doing in terms of time. Do I need to conclude? Okay. So I told you, I'm going back to the classes of lands. If you don't understand anything, or if you don't remember anything, and you want to sound very informed, just remember the 3 classes of land. Okay. Private, public, na community. Okay. Now, in your private land, no one can come and tell you how to negotiate when you're selling your shamba. Sindio? Mwagi, si unajua hiyo maneno? Hakuna mtu anaweza kukwambia hiyo mambo. Because it's your land, you dictate the price. Now, under the Climate Change Act, what they've said is, we are going to, as communities, we are going to negotiate using Community Development Agreements, CDAs. Now, CDAs are very common in the extractive world. Okay. And you know, in the extractive world, when your government, your incredible government, judges that you have some critical minerals, they acquire that land compulsorily. But now, carbon is not a critical mineral. It's not listed as such. However, they are telling us we've got to trade through CDAs, kama vile katika mining. But they only say this is going to happen in community land and in public land. Now, these are 2 different classes of lands. Public land ni shamba ya, tuseme wanasema ni ya umma, lakini tuseme ni ya serikali kwa ile katiba ya kitambo, si ndio? Kwa sababu barabara unaweza jengea hapo, sio yako, si ndio? But community land is land that is private. It's privately owned by a group of Maasais, a group of Samburus, a group of Rendiles. It's private land. So you can't use the same CDA for private land, not the same, for community land, not the same for public land. There's mischief hapo hivyo, si ndio? Okay, moving on swiftly. We are almost coming to an end. Now, kwa wale watu tunaishi huko kwa ile apartment mrefu ambayo haina lift, siku hizi tumeacha kutumia hii majiko ile mbaya. Tunatumia majiko mzuri. One of the things, however, that we don't know is that in buying some of these GCOs, we are part of a carbon project. Now, because Kenyans, even me when I got my employment contract, I didn't read much about everything else, nilienda to how much. Si hata nyinyi mnasomaga hivyo? And then unasema siku ile kukiharibika is when you ask a lawyer, hebu nisomee other sections. Now, similarly, when we get these contracts for buying cocoa gas, si ndio? Hatusomagi, lakini there's some small print hapo inasema, we've subsidized because we are getting into, it's a carbon project. Ukinunua hii jiko yako, tumekupunguzia bei kwa sababu hata sisi tumekupunguzia kwa sababu tunauza credits, ndio? Ukiangalia kuna buses siku hizi mingi zinaitwa basi go, si ndio? Zinatumia electricity, si ndio? Hata hizo basi ukienda kununua kama unataka kufanya hiyo biashara Mwagi, utapata kwamba bei yake kidogo watasema iko chini kidogo kwa sababu huko kwa mradi ya carbon. Okay. Nani yako na hii lamp? Na hii simu, nimeona mtu na hii simu. Huko kwetu tunatumia sana hii taa. Na hiyo simu pia mama yangu ako nayo. Hiyo ndo tunatumia sana sana kucharge. All these are carbon projects. Now, for the longest time, the bodies that certify credits have not been requiring proponents to disclose how much revenue they make. Okay, it has never been a requirement. Sawa sawa. But I mean, if you're not in that trade, why are you going to force me to tell you how much I sold credits for? Sawa sawa. And so, communities in the places I work in, that's like Kipia, Samburu, Marsabit, have been enjoying their lives. I tell you, they will tell you in 2021 they got 40 million. Per conservancies, 40 million unatoa wapi wewe? Uko nayo kwa account? Okay. 2022 it went a bit higher. Maybe ni exchange rate hatujui, hata wao hawajui, hata mimi sijui. Ilipanda juu ikafika 42 million. Hii mwaka they are thriving, wanafika 50 million. Now all these are pastoralist communities. Okay. Cumulatively, I think the project paid about 500 million thereabout per year. Now that sounds exciting, right? But the question that most people ask is, if you're paying us 500 million, how much are you making? Nobody asks those questions because unataka kuuliza na pesa ni ya bure. Okay. So now let's get to the market so that we are all able to trade together. Good people, we are getting to the money business. This is the most important piece, eh? Nani weka glasi yako chini kidogo tu. Tumefika place ya pesa. Na hiyo ndio ilikuleta hapa. Sasa kwa pesa sasa. How does this market operate? Do you know? Do you want to know? Okay. Now, within the carbon ecosystem, we call them project developers. These are the people that sit down and say, Vera has these types of methodology. We are going to sit down and curate a project, okay, that meets additionality, that it meets permanency, that indeed the credits are verifiable. Kwamba si 50 by 100, si miti saba. So they've got to, they sit down, they look at because the methodologies are provided for, they put in resources, a lot, not kidogo. One developer told me that they put in 1 billion USD, sio Kenyan shillings, acha kuongeza maziro. 1 billion USD, I don't even know how to write it if I convert it in exchange rate of 128, I don't know how to write it. But that's how much, I don't know if it's true, maybe aliniambia so that I also, think that. But elements of truth is, there is so much in terms of investment in developing these projects. Now what most developers are doing is, because you don't have the money, for sure you don't, is we'll put the monies for you, okay? We will curate the project, then we'll come to you and tell you, because you don't have the money, waive your rights to me, your legal rights to trade your credits. Me, I've designed the project, I've ensured there's additionality, I've ensured there's permanency, I've ensured that the credits are verifiable. But you, the only thing you have been doing is planting your trees. So now, waive your rights to me, I will trade your credits. Because after all, do you know where the market is? Do you know where Shell is? Netflix kando na ile unaona kwa TV, unajua pale wako? Okay, you don't know. So now what this person will do is, they will tell you, what I'm going to do, waive your rights, this developer here. Now, developers can be individuals. I have not heard of many in this country. In fact, I think there was a report by SOMO that said there's none. Okay. maybe, so we are going to form one after this. They are governments, and many times what governments does is they trade with other governments. So for example, Kenya can trade with maybe with the Dutch government, okay, because they are polluters, we are not. So governments can do that. And I've told you the Kenyan government has a number of projects. They don't say loudly, but they do have a number of projects. And then many of these developers are private companies. So what they do, they would say private companies, but they'll partner with you, the community, because they don't have the land that you have. And then a few NGOs and non-profits are also slowly getting into the market because everybody wants to make money. I want to be a billionaire, who doesn't want to? Then, once projects are developed, I said, like any market, if you know where the buyers are, you can go. If you don't know, you'll engage a marketer, sindio? Because the marketers have specialized, they know how wateja wako wapi. Because if the watejas were here, we will all come here, listen to the lecture, and then also talk to them. But they're not here. So marketers would market your credit at a cost. The marketer that I know that I've engaged with charges 60% of the gross revenue to market your credits. Well, this one said it's an exception because, after all, they invested a lot of money to the project. So they're doing 60% to recover their costs. And the project, this particular project was 30 years, so they said they will recover for the next 30 years. Okay? So we've said they are developers, they are marketers, just like any other market. Then they are, so marketers, you can choose to call them brokers, you can choose, but call them marketers, it's a nice name. Okay? Then, besides the marketers, so before you get to the marketers, we've talked about the certifiers, because your credits have to be verified, sindio? So that then the marketer akutafutie mteja. When you have a deal, and the deal, remember, all the contracts I have looked at, okay, part of what you do in terms of waiving your legal rights is you allow the developer to engage with any other third party. Now it's the developer that will be engaging with a marketer. So you would not know the market agreements. Okay. Now the marketers are also good people because they've realized that they can buy your credits and keep them. Okay. So they can buy your credits at an affordable price, keep them and sell them when the market, because this is like any other market, it has ups and downs, so they can buy your credits and then sell it when it works for them. Now, if you look at some of these marketing agreements, it is purchase and marketing. Anaweza amua leo, hii bei yako ni mzuri, wacha ni nunue nijiwekee. Alafu nitauza baadaye. Sawa sawa? Ama anaweza sema wacha nichukue nikuuzie at a cost of X. Okay? Then a lot of buyers are companies that pollute much. Okay. The project I've engaged with largely, the buyers are Netflix, British Airways or airline. I've engaged with one that Shell. So a lot of big companies, either in the energy sector, in the aviation industry, are the ones that are buying. Utakutana na wao wapi? Hapa Drunkard, hawako hapa, sindio? So for sure, you've got to engage a marketer to be able to do this. Now, at the end of the day, all these are costs, okay? Developing the project is a significant cost. Certifying the project is a significant cost. Engaging a marketer is a significant cost. Okay, now whoever is in between, if you look at it, could be, sometimes, would make more money than you who owns the land. Now, there are many interesting projects in this country. I have told you, Kenya is home to the world's largest soil carbon project. This is the largest soil carbon project. It's by the Northern Rangelands Trust. It covers 1.9 million hectares. That's about 4.5 million acres. And it's largely among pastoral communities. So if you ask our Masai watakwambia siku zote, they do rotational grazing. That is how they have been living. But somebody has come and said, you know nyinyi Masai, unajua Masai hata wanasema Nairobi ni yao. Mmekuwa tu mkitembeza wanyama zenu. Now we are going to help you do it in a more organized way. And we are going to ensure that all your animals have to move from point A to point B. Tuache nyasi wanasema wanapima 2.5 centimeters or thereabout. And that is the additionality. So additionality is many things. You've got to really prove that indeed there's something additional that you're doing. So Maasais have been crying, this, especially these two ladies here. Kila siku wanasema, oh, sisi siku zote tumekuwa wanyama yetu ina rom hivyo siku zote, we have been doing rotational grazing. But we have asked them, additionality iko wapi? Now this developer came with additionality, and now the developer is making money and helping them to make money. They are getting conservancy, each of the conservancy is making about 40 to 50 million, but nobody is asking what is the 100%, what is the value of the credit. Then there's Mikoko Pamoja, which is in Kwale. It's largely about mangrove. Mangrove is one of the, I think it was group, no, it's not group 9. It's not like group 9 got everything. There's a group that talked about how mangrove is in terms of absorption of carbon. And then group 3, eh? Okay. And then we also have a carbon project in Kasigao, which was a Red Plus project. Now, as I move close to the end, you know the way Kenyans can unpack things, sindio? Jirongo alikufa, sote tulikuwa na matanga, sindio? Tukasema yule mtu aliua Jirongo, yo Mercedes, you know Mercedes, there's no way a Mercedes can, no, it can never happen. Tukamzika Jirongo na torch, sindio? Kenyans have been unpacking hii torch battery itaisha lini? Kama si battery imeisha, sijui nani aonekani, no. Similarly, even Kenyans, I think Kenya is one of the countries that is very legalistic. Sindio? President akiweka polisi kwa street mumekimbia kotini, mmesema haijapitishwa na bunge. Mumeshinda kotini mpaka kesho. Housing fund. Yani hata Uncle William is tired of you people. Hata mimi if I was Uncle William, I will also get tired of you. So see, Kenyans are a very litigious country. And so most of these projects, this one has been paused twice. In fact, it's currently on pause because Kenyans went to court wakasema there was no public participation. In fact, every Kenyan knows about public participation. Sisi hatukuhusishwa. Okay. So this project has been suspended because a conservancy said even the way the conservancy was established, they were not involved. Now, this is the second time the project is put on pause. The first time, it was put on pause because what did they say? They said, E is blood carbon. Okay. So, and each of these projects has mechanisms to complain. And so this one has been put on pause. Now, Kasigao project, I know most of you followed. There was a huge expose by Kenya Human Rights Commission and SOMO, and which was around, it was more around sexual and gender-based violence among staff that work there. The senior, you remember? Yeah, okay. So I think the only one that has not had a legal one is this Mikoko Pwani of that scale, which means Kenyans are asking critical questions, which is good. Now, I want to come to a conclusion because I know you have questions which I don't have answers, so we'll answer them together. A few people are asking, is this a scam? Okay. Is this greenwashing? Why should these big guys be polluting and then cause us who are not polluting to be the ones to pay the burden? Okay. And they're not just paying the burden because when it rains, unajua Nairobi nini barabara zetu ziko na dimples kama kiongozi wetu. And so there are so many floods, we can't even mitigate because the resources we have hazitoshi, sindio? And so, is that a fair way of doing things? But besides that, there are more critical questions that people are asking is, should you just pollute and do nothing because someone else is going to buy your credit because you have the resources to do that? Iko mzungu alituambia hapa, this is just a continuation of, I didn't say you said it. Okay. The other question we're asking is this market fair? Okay. If all developers, because you and me don't have the monies, are coming from the north, and for the longest time, there's not been a requirement to tell us how much these credits are worth, okay, is this market fair? For my incredible Maasai friends who've been trading their credits for long and enjoying the money, you know poverty has no dignity. Mi ukinipa 40 million, hata nanyamaza, hata siulizi swali. I'm just going to be a good girl here and enjoy my beer. And so, do communities have the equal playing field to ask critical questions of, hii hewa ananunua nani, kwa bei gani, huyu marketer anapata pesa ngapi, ulitumia pesa ngapi kuseti project, unakula ngapi wewe? Okay. And then lastly is, do we have a choice, good people? Or has the train left the station? Okay. The market is thriving. The choices that we have is ignore it, tukae tu, na tuna pesa ingine. Ama, ask the critical questions, benefit from the market before it collapses, because every market does collapse at one point. Thank you.